Good morning, everybody.
Hey,
Nathan here, and I have my lovely wife, Jessica, hosting with me today. Today, we're actually live streaming from our home. We're back in our dining room like we were over a year ago when this whole pandemic started.
Yeah.
And just wanted to have the opportunity to connect with you guys in person in a way that we can have some feedback. And so one of the things we're going to be doing is, do you want to say hi?
Hey, good morning, everyone. Good
All right.
morning.
One of the things we want to do is just... I'm working on all these fancy buttons down in front of me here, but we wanted to be checking on the live chat. So we see lots of people checking in with us this morning. Good morning, everybody. Great to see you. And we wanted to just interact with the live chat a little bit and just have some feedback from you guys. And one of the things that I was hoping to do is maybe just, the last couple of weeks have been tough. I don't know what it is about this third sort of lockdown, but we've really felt it, and our kids have felt it. There's just a sadness and a tiredness that I think a lot of people are feeling. I think that's fair. And we wanted to just take a moment this morning as we kind of begin to just ask a question like, what are you thankful for? Sometimes it's good just to change your perspective a little bit and to look at some of the good things that are going on, and it'd be helpful.
Absolutely.
So Jess, why don't you start us off? Something you're thankful for, and I'm going to invite you guys to just post something in the chat, and we'll check in about 30 seconds and see what you guys are posting there. Something you're thankful for.
I've got to go with, I am so thankful for my family and friends, especially in this time, right? You realize who and what's actually so very important, and so I have to go with family and friends. Definitely, that's what I'm thankful for. How about you?
Well, I'm going to hold on to my answer for a little bit. I'm going to let people respond, but I wanted to let you know about something else too. At the end of our service, what we've been doing for the past number of months is we have a virtual lobby. And so we jump on Zoom and we're able to just connect as if, we're at church and we're able to say hi in the lobby. And so today there's not going to be a virtual lobby, but when the service is over, I'm going to Jess and I are going to stay online and we're just going to answer some questions. And so we've got a live Q&A. And if you want to post a question in the comments, we'll be watching that through the service. And Jess thought that was...
Yeah.
I'll put it back up.
What is that?
It's a dog watching a TV, I think.
Yeah. Oh.
Just
I thought it was a mustache.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is that? Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm going to be hanging out and just answering questions you guys have. So things you're thankful for. Let's take a look at what you guys have been saying.
Go to the chat.
Yeah. Let's see.
Ooh.
Thankful for a great family to be locked down with. That's nice, Tim. Yeah, that's great. Monique, I'm thankful for country runs on Sunday mornings with the rain refreshing me. How about a country run?
Way to go, Monique. That's great.
That's amazing.
That's good.
Thankful for family.
Yeah.
God's mercy.
Yeah.
Definitely agree with you, Jessica, adding spring flowers too.
Yeah, it's so nice to see the spring coming.
Drives in the country, sunshine. Yeah. It's amazing. Thankful for God's provision.
Oh, man.
Grateful for online church. Thanks, Helen.
Helen, we're so thankful you can join us from England. That's amazing.
Just a quick reminder that there's so many things to be thankful for. So today we got a great service. We're in week 3 of a message series called The Problem of Jesus with Mark Clark. And for those that don't know, Mark Clark is a pastor of Village Church out in BC. And it's a fast-growing church. He teaches. He's a teacher. There's a lot of information. It's like drinking out of a fire hose with some of the content that he puts out. But today we're in part 3. He's going to be talking about miracles. And a lot of people have problems with miracles. They're thinking, man, I don't know if I can believe in Jesus or the Bible because of this whole miracle thing. It just seems to me that miracles are too far out there. And he's going to address that topic today, and I think it's going to be helpful. So before we get to his message, our band has prepared some worship for us, and it's great as always. And I want us to take the time just to sort of enter into a place of worship and just relax, sit back, open your heart to God. And Jess, would you open us in prayer, and then we'll go to our team.
God in heaven, we just thank you. We thank you for this chance that we have to gather together, even though we're all kind of separate. We're all in our homes. God, you're with us. And Lord, today we look up and we fix our eyes on you. God, we don't fix our eyes on the circumstances around, but we fix our eyes on you. And God, we just thank you that as we enter in this time of worship, that you would prepare our hearts. And God, we just pray that you would draw us closer to you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thanks, Jess.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. Join us this morning as we sing of God's faithfulness and goodness. Let the King of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life. Oh, he is my song. You are good, good. Oh, 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 let the King of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the waves. Whoa, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Whoa, he is my song. 'Cause you are good, good. Whoa, you are good, good. Whoa, you are good, good. Oh, you are good, good. Oh,
You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down.
you're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. 'Cause you are good, good. Oh, you are good, good. Oh, you are good, good. Oh, you are good, you're good. Oh. I love you, Lord, for your mercy never fails me. For all my days I've been held in your hand. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire in darkest night. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father. I've known you as a friend. And I have lived in the goodness of God. Yeah. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Yeah. sing of the goodness of God.
Hey guys, I'm Pastor Mark Clark. So glad that you're part of this series with us, The Problem of Jesus. Today we are exploring the problem of miracles. To the modern mind, are miracles actually legitimate? Did Jesus do them? And what do they even mean? That's what today is all about. If you got a Bible, John chapter 2 is where we're going to be. Now, this story is going to play kind of the backdrop of what I want to say about miracles. So on the third day, this is one of the most famous stories of Jesus. There was a wedding at Cana in Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. When the wine ran out, the mother of Jesus said, they have no wine. And Jesus said to her, woman, what does this have to do with me? My hour has not come. She said, do what he tells you. Now, there were 6 stone water jars there for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, fill the jars with water, and they filled them up to the brim. And he said, now take them to the master of the feast. They took them, and when the master of the feast tasted the water now become wine and did not know where it came from, the master of the feast called the bridegroom and said to him, everyone serves the good wine first. When the people have drunk freely, then the poor wine. They move from the bottles to the boxes usually. But you have kept the good wine until now. This is the first of his signs Jesus did at Cana and manifested his glory, and the disciples believed in him. Let that play the background of the story. A few years ago, I flew from Vancouver to Toronto to speak at a conference, and I sat across the table from a guy, and he looked at me and he said, do you want to know where the demons are in your house? And I was like, sorry, what? He didn't know that I'd been going through a whole bunch of stuff, walking around my house in the middle of the night, thinking there was a presence there for months. And I had actually started to wonder about a presence in my home. I had never talked to this guy in my life. And out of nowhere, he asked me that question. And then he drew on a piece of paper the exact blueprint of my home. And he said, there's a closet that connects your office to your bedroom, isn't there? I said, yeah. He says, that's where they are. They were invited there years ago, and they're territorial. I was like, sorry, what? And I went home. And I cast these demons out. But how would this guy ever know? Now, I don't tell you that story because I think it's a proof for the existence of God. And I'm sure a skeptic would find ways to explain all of that away. I recount it as just one of the many unusual, even supernatural experiences I've actually had in my life. What do we do with this and the many millions of stories like it held by rational, credible people? Stories that seem to defy all logic. Because here's the thing, if only one of those stories turns out to be true, then our modern naturalistic and materialistic assumptions about the world and the universe and reality fall apart. That's why I believe it takes more faith to be skeptical about miracles than it does to actually believe in them. Yes, even in this modern era, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So first, how did a rationalistic skeptic like me, especially regarding miracles and the supernatural, ever come to see them as something that made sense? Here's what we got to understand. There are many reasons why people reject Jesus and reject Christianity. One of the primary ones is the distrust of miracles. The Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. displays a leather-bound version of the Bible assembled by President Thomas Jefferson years ago, where the pages of the Gospels that have miracles in them are all cut out. He wanted those parts gone. That represents the kind of Jesus the modern world wants. But it was also something people wanted in Jesus' own day. Rationalists at the time of Jesus pondered his teaching, scrutinized his miracles, denied plain evidence, and sought alternative explanations for all those things, such as the devil made him do it, or magical powers, or whatever. Today, the thinking goes like this. We live in the modern era. Miracles don't actually happen. Therefore, Jesus couldn't have done them. And the claims that he did are simply false. This skepticism is extended to the Bible as a whole, filled with miracles from beginning to end. So you have ancient, naive, uninformed people. That's why they believe in it, not modern scientific people. The march of science has trampled belief in the supernatural. That's what we think. So is all of that skepticism the right posture? I'm going to argue not, because instead miracles are actually probable. that we're seeing now, given the kind of universe in which we find ourselves, even from a scientific perspective. See, in the naturalist view, the view where there is no God, is that really correct? Are miracles basically, from that mindset, they're ruled out as impossible before we even get started? A naturalist is a person who believes that their view on nature and reality and miracles are simply the product of looking at the evidence, drawing conclusions based purely on science, experiment, and observation. First thing we got to understand about that is it's not true. If you're a naturalist, your understanding of what is allowed to happen or not happen in the universe is a philosophical approach first. You approach data and you predetermine that your experience of nature will dictate what you believe about it, that it has certain laws that can't be broken, for instance. That can be a dangerous approach. You got to approach the data with unpredetermined understandings of what's possible. In his book on miracles, Oxford professor, lifelong skeptic C.S. Lewis wrote this. He said, if anything extraordinary seems to have happened, we can always say that we or they have been victims of illusion. If we hold a philosophy which excludes the supernatural, this is what we will always say. If, for instance, we start out with the assumption that miracles are impossible, then no amount of historical evidence about the life of Jesus or anyone else is going to convince us otherwise. So that's not going to do. That isn't fair to the process of historical inquiry, because the matter has already been decided before the adventure has begun. And that's not the way to approach this. If miracles are possible, though immensely improbable, then the right evidence could potentially convince us that miracles have occurred. And I contend that once we're in a position to do that, we're going to see that existing evidence will be sufficient to convince us that quite a number of miracles have actually occurred. And there's the contradiction of naturalism. So where do we get this idea that miracles are not possible? As I mentioned, it's actually rooted in a prior philosophical assumption, the belief that there's only nature. And some of you I grew up in that, right? A material world that we can taste, see, feel, touch, smell, and that's the only thing. There's no spiritual, there's no immaterial world. Nature's the whole show, we think. Nothing exists or happens outside of nature or natural realities or the laws of nature. Most famous, 100 years ago, philosopher David Hume argued exactly that. He said, basically, nature is all that exists. We don't have any evidence that there's anything beyond it, and so let's just stop talking about it. It's problematic for a bunch of reasons. First, that whole worldview argues the laws of nature are established by a firm and unalterable experience, right? Based on the consistent testimony of countless people in different places and times, nature just is. So if one defines natural law as immutable, meaning unable to be changed, then of course miracles are impossible. But who can conclusively say that natural laws are unchangeable? There are a number of natural laws that have been overthrown by more recent scientific discoveries. Alvin Plantinga, who's one of the great philosophers of our time, talked exactly about that. He talked about the idea that Newton's laws were for nearly 2 centuries regarded as absolutely true. They worked incredibly well. No body of statements had ever been subjected to so much empirical verification. Every machine incorporated its principles. The entire Industrial Revolution was based on Newtonian physics and mechanics. Newton was vindicated 1,000,000 times a day, Plantinga said. Yet, Einstein's theories of relativity, which came along later, contradicted Newton. Newton's laws were proven in important ways to be wrong or at least inadequate. See, in other words, scientific laws are not truly immutable. They're not laws of nature per se. They're human laws, interpretations that represent our best guess about the world and the way it works. So while David Hume insists that miracles violate the known laws of nature, in the end, there are actually no known laws of nature in the end. Like, if it comes to science, so-called laws, they're always being refuted and rethought. So the need for humility in regards to conclusions about these things is overwhelming. One writer has said, a miracle is a violation of nature, right? But here's what we got to understand about that rebuttal. It's a category mistake. Lewis said this: when a thing professes from the outset to be a unique invasion of nature by something from the outside, increasing knowledge of nature can never make it either more or less credible. Meaning, his point is that when someone believes in miracles, they aren't arguing that nature left alone will produce the event. They assume there's another agent acting in the event that transcends the natural order in some way, who tampers with things. In other words, miracles aren't contradictions of science. They lie outside of the realm of science. We can't prove something is metaphysically not there when all we have to deal with is the physics. You're making metaphysical conclusions saying, oh, there's not, but all you're dealing with is soil. Now, all of that's not actually that controversial. Think of things like ethics and morality. They can't be tested and proven in a scientific way. Rarely, however, does this lead for someone to conclude that they don't exist. The philosophy of naturalism bases its predictions on the premise that things like miracles don't happen. If there are no interferences, they say. But that's the point people who believe in miracles make. By definition, miracles interrupt the usual course of nature. They must have help to do so. Catching an apple as it falls from a tree, that's the law of gravity, but it's not making it not real just because a hand got in the way. It's actually not overthrowing the law of gravity. It's just an interruption into it. Something, in this case, the hand, has broken the natural process of falling. That's not a contradiction. It's merely an interruption. So the argument for miracles is an argument for an X factor that goes over and above nature. That's the point. This is why a miracle is deemed supernatural, something outside of nature, exactly what Christianity claims. Not that nature by itself would give us a miracle. So the biblical claim is not that nature spit Jesus out of the grave, for instance, but that, what does Ephesians say? God raised Jesus from the dead and seated him at the right hand in the heavenly places. That's the point. In the book of Acts, God raised Jesus up, putting an end to the agony of death. The statement says nothing that contradicts the laws of nature. It's saying that God raised Jesus from the dead. That has zero implausibility with respect to our knowledge of natural processes. One writer has said this: only if the atheist has independent reasons to think that God's existence is implausible or his intervention in the world implausible could he justifiably regard the resurrection as implausible. So you got to say that God doesn't exist to say that miracles don't exist, which is actually a much harder task. Christianity doesn't argue that it will happen according to nature. It posits God and his supernatural power to do something beyond what nature could ever produce left to itself. So the mistake the skeptic makes with miracles is first assuming that nature is a closed system that defines the entirety of reality. The idea of miracles defies science, they say, but they don't. Naturalism as a philosophy is now seen by many people as an outdated product of an 18th century thinking. It's a mechanistic portrait of nature given by the sciences of that day that exerted widespread influence on scientific conclusions, but many of those conclusions are now actually viewed as outdated and irrelevant. Often the perspective of that time is referred to as classic or the old picture of science. The new picture and the latest sciences don't conflict with miracles at all. As the fields of biology and cosmology, the more deeply science has delved into the complexity of the universe, the more legitimate miracles have become. One writer says this: completely consistent with modern science is the deduction of miracles. To give an example, the older modernistic way of thinking held that no event could be uncaused in any way. But the entire field of quantum theory, go look up quantum mechanics today, is founded on the notion of uncaused events. Quantum theory is counterintuitive to a mind trained in older, classical, enlightened scientific paradigms, to the point where it actually seems wrong. As one of the university professors that I was reading recently put it, he said, if we try to define a miracle as an event that is incompatible with laws of nature, then it seems that water changing into wine, a dead man coming back to life, etc., are not miracles because they're not incompatible with quantum mechanics. The more we've learned about the universe, we realize it's super complex. And 200 years ago, they didn't know any of this stuff. See, ironically, that whole mindset recognizes the limitations of science. While arguing that miracles defy scientific laws, it also admits that those laws are technically unverifiable. Since David Hume actually said this: no finite number of observations, however large, can be used to derive a general conclusion that is defensible. If one asserts, for instance, that all swans, this is what one writer was talking about, all swans are white, how could this assertion be verified? By observing 10,000 swans, a million? All it would take is one black swan to make that hypothesis false. And this is exactly what happened when Europeans landed in Australia. Till that point, Western civilization had believed all swans were white. It was an irrefutable scientific fact until our awareness of our limited perspective changed and a black swan was found. Similarly, the idea that an occurrence is impossible simply because we've never experienced or observed it is a weak argument. Before we can decide on a thing having happened or not happened, we actually have to discover whether a thing is possible. And if it's possible, how probable. That's fair. So, by David Hume's own set of rules, one can't dismiss miracles, since it's impossible to investigate every potential miracle. In fact, as one writer has said, out of the millions of claims of miraculous events through history, it would only take one of those events being true to overthrow the entire naturalistic worldview. For instance, I was reading a book the other day by Craig Keener, 2 volumes on miracles. And he was talking about how at all 7 continents, doctors are going in and seeing that there are legitimate claims to over 200 million responses to prayer of miraculous supernatural events, healings, and all these different things. If even one of those is true, if this guy really did sit across from me from a table and be able to see my house in his mind and call out something that he had no indication of, I'd never even mentioned it, I'd never met the guy before. If that actually happened or something like that through all of history, guys, all of naturalism falls apart because maybe there is something behind the veil. Okay, many people I meet have stories that demand some kind of explanation that cannot be simply explained by natural means. And this is not a rare occurrence. It's something I encounter every day. Perhaps I'm a pastor, so I see it more often. But the things I witness, rational, normal women that I know personally, suddenly thrashing around on my office couch with eyes not their own, shouting threats at me in a male voice that stops instantly as I pray over them in the name of Jesus. I've seen people healed of once thought incurable diseases. I've had times when I'm praying and I find I have knowledge of things about people in the context of prayer that I did not know just a few minutes before. Knowledge that's confirmed when I talk to them later. Now, these aren't everyday occurrences, but they happen enough to make me sit back and take notice. Maybe there is something bigger than the natural world. Even as one scholar I was reading recently pointed out, he said the periodic table of the elements. Think about something, remember going to high school and you'd learn about the periodic table? I mean, that's immutable, that's unchanging, right? Today, it's not. As something as dependable as that is getting changed in light of quantum theory. See, this is the reality of the mistake many skeptics make is to equate evidence with probability. But this is a failed experiment in logic. It's like arguing a lottery winner is lying because the chance of winning the lottery are so minuscule, 76 million to 1. Or that because the odds of getting dealt the perfect hand in bridge are so astronomical that it's never happened. But we know that it has. See, if it's true that we cannot believe in one-time events that are unwitnessed and mathematically improbable, then by that same logic, and that's the logic of naturalism, then you as the skeptic or the naturalist cannot believe in the Big Bang or the idea that organic life originated through unguided evolution because we never saw it and it happened one time and it's mathematically very improbable. See, in the end, the skeptic fails to fully consider the evidence of rare events, instead focusing on the evidence for regular events and suggesting this somehow makes all rare events unworthy of belief. Now, I'm not saying any of this proves God. I'm saying simply that the skeptics are wrong to add all the evidence for all the regular events we experience each day and suggest that somehow that makes all rare events unworthy of belief. The issue is not whether an event is regular or rare, but whether we have good evidence for it. That's what we've got to look at. Admittedly, rare doesn't make something impossible. We lack complete and full knowledge of what the laws of nature even are. And it is unfair to say a miracle is a rare event by definition and then punish it for being a rare event. The person who believes in God agrees that a miracle is a rare event. That's the point. Okay, now all that philosophical talk's done. Let's talk about Jesus' miracles. There is no other major religion in the world in which miracles occupy so central a place as Christianity. The Gospels portray Jesus as having performed just over 30 miracles in 30 years of life. The whole Bible together, there's probably 250 miracles. That averages in Jesus' ministry to only 10 miracles a year, which is fascinating. John, one of the disciples of Jesus, tells us that Jesus did more miracles than we have recorded here. So he probably obviously did more than that. But still, the writers only record those 30 miracles. So why only those ones? It's interesting. The gospel writers are actually showing restraint in their presentation of Jesus, aren't they? Like, which actually speaks to their trustworthiness. They could have easily exaggerated or embellished the miracles, but instead they stick to plainly stating the details of those 30 miracles. So what miracles did he do? 31 separate miracles performed in the Gospels. And generally speaking, they can be divided into three kinds: healings, exorcisms, and nature miracles. He's basically doing miracles over the consequences of sin, Satan, and nature, right? So the total miracle account breaks down into 6 exorcisms, 17 healings, including 3 stories of raising from the dead, and 8 nature miracles. Only one miracle, other than his resurrection, makes it into all 4 Gospels, the feeding of the 5,000. Now, we could talk about the brilliance of these miracles and the fact that they happened, the fact that people outside of Christianity, outside the Bible, claim that he did them. You know, Josephus is writing and he's going, hey, I think this guy was a miracle worker. Even the non-Christians of the ancient world believed that this actually happened. There was evidence that it did. But what did they mean? The terminology used by first century writers points us in the right direction to understand the why and the what of Jesus' miracles. They were a sign, even John tells us that, right? Something that points to or indicates something else. I remember growing up as a kid, there were these green electrical boxes all over my town, and there was always a picture of this guy being electrocuted, and it's like, you know, touch this and you die. That was a picture of, and it was pointing to a reality that was very real, right? That's what the miracles are. Secondly, they use the word of a wonder, like an event that causes people to be amazed or astonished. And third, a mighty work or a marvel, an act displaying great power, especially divine power. Those are the phrases people use. So these terms all point to the fact that the miracles were more than an attempt to better the world for a handful of people who lived 2,000 years ago. They had a theological purpose, not just a practical one. As one writer has said, the Messiah was not going to save the world by miraculous Band-Aid interventions, a storm calmed here, a crowd fed there. It was going to be saved by means of a deeper, darker, left-handed mystery. See, the miracles weren't an end in themselves. They relayed important messages about God, about love, about humankind, about life, the way all these things interacted with one another and how Jesus was bringing about a new way. They all pointed beyond themselves. They were about the redemption of a broken world and broken people. They weren't not miracles in the sense of just supernatural for the sake of themselves. They were actually restoring the world back. They were the only natural things in a world that was unnatural, as one writer has said. A world that was demonized, a world that was wounded, and Jesus is putting it back. Consider the story of the man Jesus heals from blindness in John 9, right? The disciples come to him. He heals this guy of blindness. The disciples come and they go, why was this man born blind? Was it him or his parents that sinned? And Jesus heals the man, and then the story pivots and it becomes about something else. Listen to what Jesus says. I have come into this world so that the blind will see, and those who see will become blind. Some Pharisees who were with him heard him say this and asked, what, are we blind too? Jesus said, now that you claim you can see, your guilt remains. That's John chapter 9. See, the disciples, as well as the readers of John's gospel, are looking back to find out the answer to the question, why? Jesus redirects their attention forward, answering a different question. To what end? His answer? So that the work of God might be displayed in his life. The miracle in this sense was making a theological point, not about the one man's blindness, but about all of our blindness, everybody's blindness, your blindness, mine, to the spiritual questions. The words of Jesus are accompanied and confirmed by his works. They are the physical evidence to the world of the reality of Jesus, what he was claiming, what he was teaching, what's happening through my life and ministry right now, the restoring of all things. And let me give you little pictures of it. This is why John repeatedly uses the word sign, like we saw in the story. This was the first of his signs. A sign of what? Miracles are a sign of the new creation breaking into the old. It's the piece of grass growing up through the concrete. God is no more satisfied with this earth the way it is than we are. Jesus' miracles offer a hint of what God intends to do about it. That's the point. So what are one of the stated purposes of miracles then? Right from this story in John chapter 2, John tells us in verse 6 that there were 6 stone water jars filled with water. And then he tells us that their purpose was the Jewish rites of purification. That's why they were there. And so why does John tell us that? He tells us that because here's what Jesus is doing. He's taking what was this religious ritual and he's saying, I'm going to turn this into new wine. John's larger purpose is to show us through this miracle that the Jewish observance and ritual purification is being upstaged and superseded by Jesus. That this phase of history where humankind connected with God through religion and observance and ritual and temple and cleaning is coming to an end. It's being fulfilled by Jesus and what he's doing in the world. Jesus is doing something new and he's saying, I'm the new wine. I'm the new temple. Religion is giving way to relationship. And here we find the scandal of the miracles, the real problem. Jesus was creating in the world. What he was saying was like a hand grenade going off in that culture, upending centuries of tradition. This would have been seen as extremely offensive and controversial to John's audience. How do I know? A few years ago, I was in Israel and I was doing a tour. We went to Cana. We went to the place where they say this wedding took place and there was 6 stone water jars there, big. And I went and I did a devotional and there was like 100 people around and I did this devotional. I said exactly what I just told you. And my Jewish guide, Abraham, later on pulled me aside and he said, are you serious about what you said back there? And I said, yeah, of course. He said, I've done this tour with 200, 300 Christian groups in my life, and I've never heard anyone say that that's what that story was about. Do you really think that that's what Jesus was trying to say, that this era and epoch of salvation history has ended and it's giving way to this new one that Jesus is bringing? I said, yes. And of course, we started to talk. He's like, I got to rethink my whole life in light of this. Jesus wasn't just healing people or doing marvelous things. He was more than a doctor or a magician. He was doing something that meant something bigger to the larger world. It was an invitation. So here's the last question we got to answer. What does this mean for you and me? It means transformation. That's the point of it all. Jesus doesn't want us to miss the fact that this miracle and all of them are about transformation of our lives. Jesus came to save and transform normal, everyday, stale, water in a pot existence to something sweet and colorful. Something that affects the senses and stimulates the very soul of people. The real transformation of water into wine, in that sense, is about us at the end of the day. That's what John wants us to see. It's about your anger problem. It's about the guilt that you still live with because you did that thing you can't forget. It's about the materialism you can't shake, that addiction that makes you feel worthless. It's the story that promises to take the bland ruins of our tasteless lives and make them sweet again. Jesus is creating something new, something so good that the world, when it tastes it like that wine, it's never going to be satisfied with anything else. 10 or 11 years ago, we were starting a church and we got together and the team, 16 people that started Village Church in my house, had to come up with a mission statement. And the mission statement we came up with was to see people transformed into fully devoted followers of Jesus. And while that might feel generic, that purpose statement, that mission statement, it could be on any church, I guess, but we intentionally focused on the word transformed. See, Christianity is more than a set of teachings or a philosophy of life. It's an offer of a living, breathing relationship with God which transforms your life. My son who was dead is alive, says the father in the prodigal son story. Is that your life? Like Jesus is still doing miracles. He transforms us from the selfish, idol-driven, sinful, hopeless people that we were into something entirely different, so that we spend money differently. We treat our spouse and our friends differently, even strangers. That we raise our children differently, that we do our jobs differently. Everything changes when it's put into the hands of Jesus. And it changes, what does the master of the feast say? For the better. These things were used for purification, but now there's something better. Usually you pull out the good wine and then it gets worse, but this later wine is actually better than the first version. The Christian word for this is sanctification. Jesus changes our minds, our souls, our bodies from what we used to value and celebrate and take joy and pleasure in to something else entirely. Now, here's a question for all of us. What about when that miracle doesn't happen? If you grew up not going to church like myself, then you probably weren't exposed to conversations about miracles very often. I didn't sit around the dinner table at my house and talk about this stuff. It just wasn't part of my experience. But if you did grow up in church, then miracles are part of your conversation, right? That people testify to parking spaces that opened up in a busy mall, and the house the Joneses wanted that they couldn't afford, but now they got it, and the healing of these diseases. Of course, there are all those more serious prayers and the cancer and things that got healed and transformed. Unbelievable. But then there are the times when the miracles don't happen. I buried two dads, one biological father and my stepfather. And I prayed for both of them that they would be healed, and both of them died. See, in our life, the reality is every time we celebrate a miracle, the backside of that celebration is a question. Why not that one miracle I needed? Why not just one more in the life of that family or that mother or that child or me? The crucial question is present in the story of water being turned into wine. It shows us that we can't control God, that we don't get to tell God when he's going to heal somebody, and we don't get to tell God how he's going to heal somebody. Mary comes to Jesus, and Jesus says, "Woman, it's not my time." In other words, you don't get to tell God how or when or if he's going to heal somebody. "Take this cup of suffering from me," Jesus said. God answers, "No." In the midst of all the pain, there's stuff happening that we can't see. There's a story going on, which all of this has a place. Jesus promises not one sparrow will fall to the ground apart from the will of your Father, he says. But he says that, amazingly, in the midst of a series of dire warnings to the 12 disciples, predicting arrest, persecution, and death. See, it's not that we won't face trial and difficulty in our lives if we follow Jesus, but that we are safe in doing so. That's his point. Even if, and inevitably when, his answer to our prayer for a miracle is no. We shouldn't miss the fact that there aren't more miracles in Jesus' ministry. After all, he could have done so many, as many as he wanted, eradicating all disease, all sickness permanently. Why 36 separate miracles when he could have done thousands? Why so few? I think it's because Jesus knows something we know but refuse to embrace. That in life, there are no easy, quick answers. That when we face demons in our life, the answer most often is not deliverance, but discipleship. That porn addiction or shopping addiction doesn't just disappear overnight. It takes time and hard work. The road that leads to life is narrow and very few find it because it's the hard road to transformation, not seen or felt in a power encounter or a flashy instant, but hard fought in the dark when no one is looking. On our knees and amidst the sweat and the tears and the confusion. But the miracle stories say, don't despair. God is there. Father, I pray for that comfort to reach every heart and mind watching this right now. We all pray for miracles to happen in our lives and the lives of the people around us, and sometimes they don't, or they don't in the way that we would deem it right. And I pray that we take the comfort of the fact that we trust you and that you're doing a beautiful thing in the midst of the world, and you have a plan, and you're bringing about transformation, transforming not what we do, but what we want to do, what we value, what we love. And you're doing that even in the midst of the difficult times, even when it looks like you're not doing a miracle. You come through in the end. That the gospel's beautiful message to us is not that we'll never die, but that we're safe in dying. Not that we'll never face trial or sickness or suffering, but that ultimately we're safe in doing so, because from your perspective, you are working on us not to have a good 80 years, but an 80 million after that, and 80 million after that. And Jesus, let that perspective comfort us, challenge us, change us to the core of who we are. In your good name we pray. Amen.
The songs we've been singing this morning have been speaking of God's goodness and God's faithfulness and just thankfulness to God. And these songs were not chosen by mistake. If I can be completely honest with you, the last few weeks have been really tough with the new restrictions and the new lockdowns put back into place. And it doesn't seem like there's an end in sight. I've been really struggling with this. And maybe being here, I'm supposed to act like I have it all together and everything's, it's so easy to just grab the mic and grab a camera like, hey guys, don't worry, God's got this. I don't feel like that all the time, and I really don't feel like that this week. And that's why I chose these songs, just to serve as a constant reminder that God is good. And even though I don't see the end in sight, I have no choice but to believe that He's got this under control. And my challenge for you this week is just to remember God's goodness. Think of one thing that God has done in your life that has changed your life, that has changed your heart. And then we'll move on from that and just keep reconnecting and hope we do see God at the end of all of this. And with that being said, this is a song called Bigger Than I Thought.
Speak to me when the silence steals my voice. You understand me. You understand me. Come to me in the valley of unknown. You understand me. You understand me. You understand me, God. You understand me. So I throw all my cares before you. My doubts and fears don't scare you. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought. So I stop all negotiations with the God of all creation. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought you were. I believe, so help my unbelief. You understand me. You understand me. Help me reach the faith that's underneath. You understand me. You understand me. You understand me, God. You understand me. So I throw all my cares before you. My doubts and fears don't scare you. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought. So I stop all negotiations with the God of all creation. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought you were. in the Father's hands. Leave the rest in the Father's hands. I will rest in the Father's hands. Leave the rest in the Father's hands. Oh, I will rest. I will rest in the Father's hands. Leave the rest in the Father's hands. Oh, I will rest. I will rest in the Father's hands. Leave the rest in the Father's hands. So I throw all my cares before you. My doubts and fears don't scare you. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought. So I stop all negotiations with the God of all creation. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought. Oh, you're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought you were. Oh, you're bigger than I thought you were. Oh, 'cause you're a good, good Father. It's who you are. Yeah, you're a good, good Father. It's who you are. And you're perfect in all your ways. You are perfect in all your ways. Good, good Father. And I will worship you for all of my days. Oh, you're a good, good Father. It's who you are.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much to Jason and the team. I just want to say I mean, I don't know, for those of you who are not recording artists, musicians per se, the work that our team's been doing to put that together, to have 4 people in separate locations recording and putting that all together for us to be able to worship, it's amazing. So I just want to say thanks to Jason and Neve and the entire band, who each week there are different people rotating through that are just doing so much to make this amazing. We're so grateful and thankful
Appreciate you.
for you. I did want to comment on the message because I find these messages we've been listening to are really challenging, and there's always aspects that kind of challenge wherever we're coming from theologically. Like, for example, there's 2 sides of a coin. I always talk about the 2 sides of a coin. And on the one side, there are people that say God doesn't do miracles anymore. He doesn't heal. He doesn't do anything supernatural. And that's not what Mark was saying. Then there are other people who would say God always does miracles. He always heals. He always gives us the desires of our heart. If we pray the right way, we get it. And Mark wasn't saying that. And so he's inviting us into that tension in the middle to say, what is God doing? I love that we can't control God, but I would just challenge you to continue to have faith in him and ask. Even if the answer is no, continue to ask God and seek him. And we have a good God. And so anyway, I love those messages cause us to challenge. And wherever we find ourselves on that spectrum, it sort of invites us into that challenge of thinking in a new way. So anyway, I hope this message series has been helpful for you. I did want to let you know about a couple of things. But first, if you haven't already, would you subscribe to our YouTube channel? Would you subscribe and click the notification bell? All right. What that does is that whenever we post a video, it'll show up in your feed. It'll notify you that we're there. We are 11 subscriptions away from 400. Whatever that means. So I guess that's good, right? So the more people we have subscribed to the channel, the more people that like the videos each week when we have a service, the more our services and content will show up on people's feeds. And so, you know, there's never been an easier way to share about Jesus, to share our church with others than just subscribing, clicking like, turning on those notifications. So would love to have you do that. Couple of things I wanted to let you know just as far as next steps. How do you take a next step in this time? And there's a number of things that you can do. There will be a link going up in the comment section and in the description for a Connect card. Okay, and that's just a simple online form that you can fill out, and that Connect card comes directly to our staff and allows us to interact with you. If you're new, we'd love to connect with you and share some resources with you. Also, if you would like to take a next step. So let me tell you about a couple things that you could do as a next step. One of them that Todd has asked me to let you guys know about is Starting Point. Do you know anything about Starting Point, Jess? Can you explain what it is?
Starting Point is I think it's an 8-week class, and it's an awesome opportunity for people just to come and answer their questions. I think sometimes people are intimidated. They come to faith, or they're learning about faith, and they have questions, and that's totally normal. And so Starting Point is just a great chance to come and have those questions answered. It's really awesome. Really great.
Yeah, we have a new Starting Point group starting up on May the 5th. And it's 8 weeks, so it's going to be running on Wednesday nights, I believe it is. Wednesday, May 5th, it begins, 8 weeks. It'll begin on Zoom, it'll begin virtually, but then as soon as we're able to, it'll move to in-person as soon as we're allowed to do so. But if you're new to faith, if you're questioning, if you're looking to get a foundation, if you want to take a next step, this is the thing to do. It's called Starting Point. We've had 3 groups go through it. The feedback has been incredible. People saying, hey, I came into this with questions, and I came out with a faith of my own. And that's what we want for each and every person. So I want to encourage you to do that.
Hey, I think some people have even taken it a few times.
Yeah.
They've been so benefit by the material that they're like, I need to do this again. So it's a great opportunity just to kind of solidify those things about faith.
Yeah. And if you'd like to get baptized, baptism is a symbol of, it's an outward symbol of inward faith, getting dunked in the water, coming out a new person, new because of what Christ has done in your life. And we'd love to help facilitate that in some way. Obviously, we're in lockdown, but I know we're looking at doing something with our small group. Maybe we can do baptisms that way, or we can do a private baptism ceremony. So just fill out the Connect card. Let us know if you're interested in taking a next step in any of those ways, and we'd love to do that with you. So as I said at the beginning, we are going to do a Q&A, and so I'm going to just stay here live in a little bit here once we close the service. And if you have any questions, go ahead and post them in the comments, and I'll just stick around and answer those questions. And just wanted to connect with you. I think
we feel disconnected from everybody. So even if you just want to chat, stick around.
Absolutely. So let me just say this before we kind of wrap things up is if you aren't already supporting this church and ministry, we would love to have you partner with us financially. You can do so in a number of ways. You can e-transfer, that's kind of the best way, or you can use Tithely or Canada Helps. There are a number of options that you can find on our website under the Give tab. There's also links below. We have hundreds of incredible donors who give weekly, monthly, whatever it is, as God leads them. And it allows us to do everything. We have a full staff team of 6 people. We have all kinds of programs we're running. And obviously, as you guys know, we have a building initiative in the way. We just purchased a building in the last month, and we're excited about that. So what else can I say? Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell. This is awesome. I feel like a bad salesman. We really do love you guys, and we're so glad to be able to share this time with you this morning. Thanks for tuning in and being with us. Come on back next week as Mark Clark will finish this message series called The Problem of Jesus. So I'm just going to check the live chat now and just see if we got any questions coming up here. There is about a 30-second delay, so I will just stall a little bit while we wait for comments and feedback to come on through. Do you have any questions for me?
No, I don't have any questions for you.
Let me circle back to what I'm thankful for. We began our service today by saying, "What are you thankful for?" And I kind of passed the buck on that one. So let me share. I am so thankful for a supportive and loving church community.
Yeah,
and
that's good.
I know I'm the lead pastor, the leader, the founding pastor, whatever. But I can tell you that it means so much to me. I realize the church isn't me. The church is the community of you guys. And the support that I have, the support that we have as a team has been unreal. Through this whole pandemic, there's been lots of people with questions and lots of things coming across my desk, but it's been nothing but supportive at every level. And a couple of weeks ago, I announced that I'm going on sabbatical, and that begins in 3 weeks. For those that haven't heard, 3 weeks from now, I'll be going away on a 12-week sabbatical. And I've started the process. I have a spiritual director that's challenging me, asking me questions, and helping me guide my way through this 12-week time. So it's going to begin with 4 weeks of rest, like just turn everything off and rest. And then the next couple of months after that is going to be a process of rediscovering my own faith and spending time with God and prayer retreats and time with my wife. And then, meeting with other pastors and preparing to re-enter into ministry, refreshed, recharged, renewed with a plan. So I'm really excited about that. Since I've announced it, I've had just so many emails and calls, people just saying, we love that and we're happy for you and we hope it's the best time possible. So anyway, I'm saying all that just to say how amazing you guys are and how supported I have felt. So let me just go back to the live chat and see if there's any questions coming through here. Let's see. Thanks for the worship. Look at this thankfulness. Awesome.
Amazing.
Jason, thank you. Love it. Just want to say thank you. That's
Diane.
great.
Diane's our greatest cheerleader, our pathway cheerleader.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So if you have any questions, go ahead and post them in the chat and I'll get to them. Otherwise, I'll just keep talking about a few more things before we shut down the live feed. Some of you may be wondering what's going on with the building. And I want to give you a little bit of an update on that. We had to cancel our volunteer crews that were coming in to do some demo. We were able to get a few things done with some staff, but there's still some projects there that have to be done. We are waiting to hear back from the health unit on whether we can go in during this time with even small teams of volunteers, masked and whatnot. So we're waiting on that. We have applied for a demo permit to rip down the ceilings and to proceed with the next steps, and we're waiting on that to be approved. And we have a project manager, his name's Tim Lawton, out of the Barrie area, and he's going to be, he's actually working on the construction budget. So we have a board meeting in in 8 days. And our hope is that when our board meets, we'll have a full construction schedule, like here's timelines, and we're hoping to have prices on all the various components to be approved and begin moving things forward. So we're in a bit of a waiting game right now as we wait for permits and we wait for all our pricing and timelines, and we'll keep you guys informed. On our website, we have, if you go to pathwaylife.com, My Church, and there's a building tab there, and there's information. So we'll keep posting updates there and let you guys know as things progress. Let me just go back to the live chat and see what we got here. Okay, I love it. Ray has posted a scripture. Therefore, dear brothers and sisters, stand firm. Let nothing move you. Always give yourselves fully to the work of the Lord, because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain. Thanks for sharing that, Ray.
I think Andrew's got a question there.
That's so good. Andrew, question. What's it say? Question we might be thinking about is, how do you respond to unanswered prayers? That's a great question. How do you respond to unanswered prayers? Well, I can tell you the way not to respond is with doubt, and the way not to respond is in fear. The one thing I can be absolutely certain in that God is good. So even when I don't get the answer that I'm looking for, even when it feels like God is silent, that's when the scriptures, having them in your heart is so important, because you look and you go, okay, he said he loves me. He's proven it over and over and over again. So what I feel right now is not true. And so it is so, so important when a prayer is unanswered. We don't always know if it's God saying no, or if it's just the timing's off, or if there's something that we have to fix in our life. We don't know. This is the problem. So the one thing we need to do is keep trusting God and keep going to him in faith and asking and seeking. And if there's a problem on our end, he'll reveal it and we can address it and move forward. And if it's God saying no, he will reveal that too. It will become evident. And so then we can move on knowing that. So that's
I'm reminded of that scripture, though, when you've done all to stand, you just stand. And sometimes it is a lot of waiting, and we don't always get everything automatically. I love that, what Mark said, right? We don't tell God what to do.
That's right.
But that doesn't mean we don't ask. And so we just keep standing on what God has said. What has he said to us? What are his promises? We go back to that. He's faithful to that, and we rest there. Yeah.
That's so good.
Speaking of prayer, I just think it's a good reminder to remind everyone, we're praying for you. We're praying for you in this time. Man, we know this is not an easy time. I was thinking this morning, there are people who have lost their jobs. There are people who have had surgeries canceled. There are people who haven't seen their parents in forever. They can't see their grandkids. This is a rough time, but we know God is faithful. And we're praying as a staff for you. We're praying regularly. We love you. And we are going to make it through this. It's just a matter of time. And so we stand.
We have business owners and leaders that are just being faced with such difficult decisions. And guys,
healthcare workers, teachers who are trying to teach their own kids while they're teaching their classes.
And we live in a time that it just seems extremely polarized. They're just like everyone is just polarized on the issue of COVID, vaccines, lockdowns, all of it. And I get it. I feel it. We're there with you. And we're talking about waiting and trusting God, and that's so difficult in times like these. But just wanted to encourage you just to hang in there. We do love you, and our staff, every single Tuesday, we're praying for you guys. We're praying for our church. So if you have any prayer requests,
Please send them to us.
Shoot them to us. Just email any of our staff, anything, put it in a comment card, whatever. And we would love to be praying and supporting you in that way.
Or even special care needs. Sometimes you just need a little extra support. Then please reach out. We have people who are just standing by waiting. I've had people even in the past few weeks reach out and say, is there anything I can do? Is there something I can do to help someone? So please don't hesitate to reach out. There is care available if you need it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I think that's it for today. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being here. We love you guys, and we will. Our plan is to be live hosting again next week. So we hope to see you there.
Same picture.
Same dining room. Same photograph on the wall.
Some things don't change. I guess. Yeah.
So till next time, we love you guys. We'll see you next week. Thanks everyone for joining us.